Have you ever been rushing to meet a deadline as a student and you manage to finish your assignment and submit it 1 minute before the cutoff time, just in time? Have you been waiting on someone or trying to get somewhere before the place closed, and you manage to get there 5 minutes before the time, just as they're turning the sign from open to close? You reach there just in time. Well, you know and understand the feeling that we're talking about. And tonight we want to share about God, who is always on time. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm Major Jonathan Kellman, District Officer for the Salvation Army, right here in Belize, located in the heart of Central America. And today we are going to be talking about God is always on time as we focus on our 10 major minutes. This is the series for this week, talking about moments in time. Even though as Christians we say we believe in God, and we tell people, yes, we trust Him and we accept the Bible, and when things are going well, we say, yes, God is great. God is a deliverer, But then that moment comes when we find ourselves in a crisis and we can't solve it, and we cry out to God, and it's crucial situation, and time is slipping, time is rushing by, and we don't see God turn up yet. We don't see the deliverance that we prayed for, that we asked for, that we believe will happen. And in these moments we start to panic. In these moments we start to doubt whether God is working or not. We cry out even more and see how we can solve this thing on our own, and till it comes to the point sometimes that we get discouraged. And then right at that very last moment, God sends somebody, or he turns up, or he delivers us. He doesn't come himself, but he uses somebody as the agent of salvation, the agent of delivery, the agent of miracles. And then really right in that point we say, yes, God has done it. Sometimes when we look on especially the passage in John chapter 11, where Jesus had heard that his good friend Lazarus was sick. And Jesus said, well, I will not come. He had been doing miracles, and the sisters sent for him because they expected that he would heal Lazarus and prevent him from dying. Jesus said, I will not go. This is going to be an example for me to prove to you, and especially the disciples, the power of God and the will of God, that God will be glorified. And so he delayed. Well, during that time of delaying, Lazarus died. And then he said, okay, let's go now. When he got there, the sisters were beside themselves, they're mourning, and they said to him, well, what happened? Well, why you come now? Because he's already dead. If you had come earlier, he would be alive. He would still be alive. You know how it is. We in our human frailties, we say these things when a loved one is sick or dying. We try to find ways and means. This is called bargaining. We try to find ways and means to justify certain actions. If you had done this, or if you had said this would have happened, if the doctor had done this, certain treatment. And so Jesus said, no, but I am the resurrection and the life. Believe in me. Remember? He that believes in me, yet though he were dead, yet shall he live. And Jesus went up to the tomb and he said, what? But you can't try to do anything now. But he's been dead 3-4 days, and the body will be stinking now. It'll be decaying. And Jesus went up, Lazarus, come forth. People must be thought he was really crazy, because this guy was dead. And he cried out again, Lazarus, come forth. And then they moved they opened the tomb. Lazarus came out, still wrapped up in the burial clothes, but he was alive. You know, it was a great miracle. Jesus came, well, just in time, or we would say in time as he would, so that you say that wasn't anything that any person could have done. It was truly supernatural. Only God could do it. And that's what happens sometimes in our lives. Right at the very end, when we have exhausted all the resources, all of a sudden, then God sends somebody to deliver. You know, you could be there in the house and nothing in the house, and then you just sit down there and you pray to God, Lord, send something. And I often hear some older folks, they say they put a pot on the stove, they start boiling water. They don't have anything in the house to cook, and they start boiling water, and then during the time the water is boiling, and they hear this knock on the door, and then when they look, it's somebody outside with some provisions that they can cook. You know, I always used to laugh at this kind of story until one day that happened to me, and I said, well, imagine. I always laugh at these people, yet the same thing happened to me today. Well, my dear friends, today is October the 5th. And today is my son's birthday, my first son, Kirsten. And I want to tie up this sharing tonight with a story about him. Today he is 23 years old, all right? Remember that. Now, when he was 1 year old and 2 months, and 1 month, which means he was 13 months. We had just left Belize and gone to Bermuda, and couldn't figure out, how we actually got to Bermuda. And let me see if I can summarize this well. He was just starting to walk and talk. Can't remember. And but we noticed that he stopped walking and he started crawling again, and then he couldn't crawl. He was like keeling over, unbalanced on the back. I said, something must be wrong. My wife had a cousin who was a nurse, and said, well, you better take him to the doctor and ask for a check. And we went to the hospital to get a CAT scan, and he would not stay still. And the technician said he had to be absolutely still for us to do this thing. He would not stay still. He said, well, we can't do it. And we walk away. We walked away and we went over to another section of the hospital where my wife's cousin was. And when we got over there, Kirsten fell asleep. And he said, well, try to see if you can go back. We went back we crept back with him, not trying to wake him up. And we said, well, you're sleeping now, will you do it? And they said, okay, we'll slip it in now. We missed the appointment, but they said, okay, we'll put him in. Put him in, and they did the whole thing, and we left. Left the hospital and went to divisional headquarters, which was about less than 10 minutes away. And when we got there, we found the secretary for DHQ coming outside of the office and say, well, you need to go to the doctor like right now. And the doctor was 1 block away, just around the corner. And when we got to the doctor said, well, try to sit us down to explain that our son had hydrocephalus. They discovered that in the CAT scan. And he needed to be flown out, and whether we would agree to fly him to Boston or whether to Sick Kids Hospital in Toronto. And because the Salvation Army in Bermuda was connected to Canada, we said, well, Toronto. And right around the corner at DHQ, there had been talking to the doctor too, and they started this whole thing. And in a matter of hours, they had arranged for an air ambulance to fly in from the States to carry him and my wife and myself over to Toronto. Everything happened like in a kind of timing, because if he had not fallen asleep, we wouldn't have been able to go back and do the test. We would have done it 3 days later. Well, when we got to the doctor was saying, well, it's a good thing you went back and had that CAT scan because your son is dying. If you had waited until next week to reschedule this thing, he would have been dead before that. So, timing, all about God's timing to get him to go to sleep. And then and having everybody, the hospital, divisional headquarters, everything there, and plus we were in Bermuda in another territory for the Salvation Army. Salvation Army funded this thing, the flight, and the surgery. I couldn't go on the plane because the plane was too small, so I came on a regular plane the next day. And we were there in Canada, you know. I think that was probably my first time. I'd never been there before. And we were there all alone. Yeah, well, our divisional leaders, Majors Alf and Ethel Richardson, were in Toronto for a symposium just at the same time. So it was so great. And one of the members from our church, our core secretary, Sister Geraldine, she was in there in Toronto also. So it was great that in this crisis, our spiritual leaders were actually there and met me at the airport and went to the hospital and spent time with us, you know. And the care that we had, everything was just in a timing. And he had the surgery, brain surgery. It was hydrocephalus, his fluid in the brain, like the studies of the brain were pushing against his skull. The fluid wasn't going out, and he was in intense pain, had been in for several weeks and months, and we didn't understand what was happening with him. And the surgery was successful. The neurosurgeon said he's supposed to have a shunt put in, but when we went in, we didn't need to put the shunt in. Normally, children, babies that have that illness, they have to put like a tube in there, and you manually have to pump the tube to clear the fluid in the brain if it gets blocked. And then they don't live long because the length of the tube that they put in as babies, it will be obviously too short when they start to grow. So most of them never reach the teens. But every year but the surgery was such a success, and the neurosurgeon kept using his case as one of the best cases and results that he has had. And then every year, Christian still alive. And so he moved from 1 year old to 2. So we used to celebrate every year, every time, and try to protect him from getting the head hurt and all that stuff there. Till he is still here now. I mean, he passed primary school, then he passed secondary school, and now he's in university. I would want to say, you know, he's probably about 95% okay, because he still suffers from some of the stuff from that illness. But the fact that I can sit here now today with a smile on my face to say, today is my son's 23rd birthday, is a miracle. The timing, everything about that case and everything about his life talks about God. God is always on time. And if I never believed that before, I believe in the story of my son, and I could sit here now and talk about it. Most time when I had to talk about that story, it was a very traumatic, scary time that we had this baby. The baby couldn't talk to us, couldn't tell us the pain we're going through. And, God used certain people in the way, in the path to chart us to this point where he then could be to be treated and to be healed, and to live to see an extra 22 years on top of that first year that he lived. 9 months in Bermuda and 4 months in 9 months in Belize, and then 4 months in Bermuda. So we give God thanks. So that's my grateful moment. My grateful moment is today to celebrate the 23rd birthday of my son. He's a special. My 3 children are special in their own way. But this first one, he took some energy out of us, the energy, and I can't really explain to you. And sometimes, when I would see other parents with their children with worse conditions or whatever, and it seemed as if the children will not pull through, I kind of was feeling like, man, what can I say to them? Because my son was almost dying, but yet he revived. I kind of feel almost like sad. I can't really talk. I can't really boast about it, but maybe, but I guess I would say that God allows certain things to happen to certain people so that they can use their experience to help somebody else to identify. So maybe the ones that lose the child, they can comfort somebody else that goes through that same experience. With me getting back my son after handing him over to the surgeon, I was the one giving to the surgeon, and the surgeon walked away with him in his hand. And I said, "Boy, I wonder if I'll ever see this baby again." And we have to be thankful for the time that God gives us day by day. But in everything that you do, especially when you find yourself in a crisis and a crunch, don't give up. Call on God and watch God work. God is always on time. If I could say that to you, God is always on time. And when sometimes it takes some time to do things because we have to test our faith, but also we get to see that there's no one else that can help us. At that point in anywhere, I say, yes, it's God that has helped us. It didn't mean to be so long tonight, but I want to then conclude with the bite-sized boost. I can't leave you without that. Now remember that this is the second last week, and we're focusing on time this week, and next week we're going to be closing off the 10 major minutes, this daily thing, and then we're just going to go to one night a week on Tuesday nights. So I'm starting to make that announcement from now. Feel free to, when you get to the end of this video, to watch the other videos in this series for this week, and when you get some time, go back and watch the videos for on the other series talking about bread, and then the other series talking about lessons from the boat, and the other series talking about traveling. It's been really a good time sharing these and be praying for these every time. Now, Kylie Francis says, one thing is for sure, if you don't play, you don't win. If you don't play, you don't win. Vince Lombardi says, winning means you are willing to go longer, work harder, and give more than anyone else. Right? Competing at the highest level is not about winning. It's about preparation, courage, understanding, nurturing your people and heart, and winning is the result. That is what Joe Torre says. Nelson Mandela, final one, says, a winner is a dreamer who never gives up. A winner is a dreamer who never gives up. So never give up, my dear friend. Remember that at the lowest point, you can still call on God, and He will help you, will heal you, deliver you, if it is His will. But remember, He is always on time.